for feminism, which is a cry for help if you're asking me. I guess we'll see. This person's name is Erin Bird. Never heard of her. I'm sure she's fine.
Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I look at feminism as a failed social experiment, and I've made videos that address issues surrounding feminism. But in the past, I used to be the biggest feminist you could ever meet.
The biggest feminist you could ever meet.
Recently, I was asked what it took
Pussy hat and all, dude.
For me to go from being such an advocate for feminism to loudly renouncing feminism today. People are curious to know what took place. What was my journey? There was a process involved that required me to get to a point where I questioned my own beliefs. During this process, I learned from reality. I started noticing the impact feminism was having on individual people. Unfortunately, this took several years and a lot of mistakes in order for me to finally come to terms with the lessons life taught me. With that being said, I'm glad that I'm no longer under the delusions of feminism.
I'm going to speed you up. The delusions of feminism. I would love to understand where this is. Let's hear the reasoning.
And I'll be able to pass on what I've learned about it to my daughter and hopefully to my audience as well. In order for me to break down the core doctrine of feminism, I'll have to expose the lies one by one. Okay. This will be part of a series on dismantling the lies of feminism. I need to be clear. I do not condone any form of misogyny. Being critical of or even against feminism does not make someone a misogynist.
I think you can be critical of any sort of idea without being a misogynist, but a lot of the reasoning behind the disagreement with feminism is misogyny. So we'll see.
If you believe that this is true, look up the term false dichotomy, and you'll see that this is a logical fallacy. I also don't want to demonize feminists or say that they're bad people. Women and men who identify as feminists have absorbed what their society tells them is true. And you can't punish someone for conforming to their own society, no more than you can blame a 4-year-old who was born in the United States for speaking English. People, especially children, integrate what's around them without even trying to. I think most feminists believe in fairness and justice, but they've been misguided by pop culture, social media, and circles of university intellectuals. For me, feminism didn't originate from hatred of men, but from envy of them.
Envy? Wow. All right. So I disagree. Yeah, I do not think that feminists are doing an envy thing. I think they are advocating for their own freedom, basically.
I was a tomboy when I was a kid. I didn't like wearing dresses, and I wasn't interested in makeup. I liked to play outside, explore the woods, collect rocks, and I liked to read. I was
Okay, what does that have to do with anything?
Unafraid of getting dirty. I mostly played with a male cousin of mine who was the same age as me, and I remember feeling like his behavior gained the approval of my family members, but mine didn't. In fact, I felt like my family in general preferred boys.
Okay, so that's sexism. You don't envy his treatment. You are upset that they're treating you different because of your just sex. They're sexist. Yeah, that's not envy. They just shouldn't treat you like that, you know? I mean, I guess you could describe that as envy, but it's not envious of that position. It's saying that difference is the problem, not that I prefer to be treated like a man or whatever.
When puberty was explained to me as a child, it made me feel ill. The idea of my body going through a transformation that rendered me a woman didn't sound too appealing. I remember watching the women out in public with their perfect hair and makeup and looking so dolled up and attractive, and I remember thinking that I'm supposed to turn into that, but I didn't think I could ever be that pretty.
Ooh, yeah. This does sound like some internalized stuff.
And I hated the idea of receiving attention from men because as a child, it sounded disgusting and wrong. I associated femininity with stupidity, crying, complaining, shopping, and fragility.
Do you like men?
My mother and sisters were big believers in feminism. Even though I was separated from them as a child.
Do you like, so this is a discussion about gender and how you express and stuff, apparently.
And was raised by my father for the majority of my childhood, I still interacted with them enough to absorb the indoctrination. In high school, during my years of self-searching, I embraced feminism fully, and I thought my beliefs would never change. I've always been a person who takes my beliefs very seriously, and I've always been determined to have the integrity to live according to those beliefs.
That's a weird way to take it. I have to make sure that I really care about my beliefs. I mean, you shouldn't have to make sure you care about your beliefs or whatever. Like, you just have them because they just logically follow, and you're like, oh, okay, this word describes me as you become an adult usually, or I guess a teenager even. You start to figure out like kind of what these things mean, these different sort of like camps within society. There's a a twinge of like odd adherence.
When I started receiving attention from boys, I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know how to respond to it. I had crushes on boys, but I was always too shy to talk to them about it.
Okay, so that's normal to be shy or whatever. I also am wondering what kind of relationship you thought you needed to have with boys and men. And I'm wondering if that's the kinds of relationships you actually did want, or if you feel obligated to have them or whatever.
I consider myself to be a late bloomer. I think feminism appeals to women who are intelligent, and this is one reason why it is so insidious. As a child, I remember thinking that I was just as smart, if not smarter, than the boys I interacted with, and this made me confused. I absorbed a message that I later identified as men are the standard, and that women are derivatives of men. When you think of a human, you think of a man, not a woman.
Do you? I don't... Wow, you're sexist. That's sexist. Like, that's just sexist. Yeah.
Because women are incomplete human beings.
Surely.
This made me feel defiant and more committed to my feminist beliefs. I genuinely felt that inside, I was no different from a boy. I also felt like the core of who I was separate from my body. I believed that the only difference between men and women was what was between their legs, and I resented the idea that I would be judged by my looks just because I was born a girl. Even as a child, I understood that good looks were superficial and temporary, so I didn't see the point in putting too much stock into it. I believed I had much more to offer the world using my mind.
We're sort of undercutting that whole notion by adhering to things like sexism.
I was taught to have disdain for men. I was taught that they were inherently malevolent and wanted to treat all women as baby-making machines.
By who? Your parents? So some men, definitely. Conservative men are pretty much, it's pretty accurate. But like, you know, who?
I think the reason feminism appealed to me so much as a teenager is because I was thirsting for an identity. According to Erikson's stages of development, the goal of adolescence is to form an identity, and I felt that feminism gave me that identity.
I feel like a lot of people confuse themselves when they try to be like, what am I? Who am I? And it's like, just be on the ride, man. You are yourself. Be on the ride, brother. Sister. Get on. Just try to like, I don't know. A lot of people, they turn to exterior sources to try to find themselves interiorly.
What is wrong with salami?
And I think it just takes introspection and conversations with other people that are real. Chucky, not a thing is wrong with salami.
I felt like I alone knew about this grand conspiracy and that most people couldn't access the information I knew, and this made me feel superior. However, the reality is that I wasn't good at discerning the truth in the first place. I wasn't thinking critically. I was just subscribing to an ideology that I thought made me unique. In other words...
Yeah, so it sounds like you're projecting, because it sounds like you're saying all the women are feminists, especially the smart ones, but not me, who really is the smart one, and I'm rejecting feminism, and now I'm making videos about it, and you don't have any self-awareness at all that you're doing this. So it's about your personal liberation and not being compared to men at all. It's not about comparing. It's about understanding independence and personhood outside of that, and not trying to have expectations on people based on their sex or whatever, or gender.
In other words, being a feminist made me feel good. It made me feel like I was a righteous person. Mm-hmm. As I got older and gained a lot more experience, I slowly obtained the ability to determine the truth for myself. One by one, all the tenets of feminism disintegrated into falsehoods, and at some point I realized that my brain had been hijacked.
What even are the tenets of feminism? I don't even know. I don't even think about it like that. I literally don't adhere to any system or whatever. I just think like women are people. They're humans, I don't think you can't do something because you're a girl or whatever.
I felt betrayed because I had given my faith to feminism, only to realize that it had led me to make terrible choices that I would later regret.
You gave your faith to it? Why do you talk like a nun?
Feminism began to negatively affect my life in a major way
like a
when I got
religious
married.
Person.
Soon after marrying my husband, I became a mother, and then 8 months later, I started working full-time as a nurse. It became clear in the first 2 years of my marriage that I had no idea how to be a wife, but I was too arrogant to believe that it was my fault. The first 2 years of my marriage were very difficult. I went to marriage counseling with my husband for several months, but things didn't get any better. In fact, they only got worse. My husband and I began having long, drawn-out fights that were sometimes very intense. Most of our fights had to do with my husband not following my orders. I was stubborn, and I had a strong will. I believed that it was my duty to lead him in the relationship.
To lead him in the relationship? What is this? How can you say you were a feminist? What? No, you guys live together. What? That's it's not feminist to be like fucking extra super nice and bend over backwards for my wife. It's just about respecting her. If she needs help, or I just want to help her out, like whatever. Just be her partner. Just be his fucking partner. And I assume he has to do the same, but like it's a mutual exchange. It's not about being in charge or whatever.
I believed that it was my job to hold him accountable for his actions and to punish him in some way whenever he disobeyed my wishes. I was always leading the attack, trying to get him on the defensive. I would nag him in an effort to get him to relent out of sheer annoyance. All of these things made...
Okay, so that's not feminism. That's just you suck.
my husband feel emasculated, but I didn't understand that at the time. I saw members of his family as my enemies, and I told him that he had to choose me over them.
You sound like a narcissist.
I didn't think this was an unreasonable request, but he felt like he couldn't make that choice, and that he shouldn't have to. Because
these aren't feminist things.
I worked full time, I thought it was unjustified for me to be expected to do the duties of a housewife. I had no concept of gender roles because I didn't have a lot of memories of my parents working together as a married couple.
What do you mean gender roles? It's not about gender roles. It's about like roles in your household together, if it's about roles at all. It's more about division of labor than anything, and communication.
My resentment for my husband was partially fueled by a mental illness that I didn't know I had, which caused me to see him as my enemy and another source of male oppression. Over time, my husband and I became more and more estranged until we eventually separated. In 2020, I was diagnosed with a severe case of bipolar disorder, and I reunited with my husband, but I still didn't know how to be a good wife.
Okay. So sounds like you make decisions in a funny way, for sure.
It took 3 years for the doctors to finally prescribe me an effective combination of medications, and then the fog was
Your son
lifted
is
from
dead. Killed by the woke mind virus.
my mind, and I achieved an acute sense of clarity. Once my mental illness was properly addressed, I could do something to fix my marriage. I discovered a book called Worthy Woman, written by a man named Zach Rody. Zach Rody is a relationship coach who has written several books.
Our advocate.
Men and women can change their behavior in order to mend and form lasting, committed relationships. The content of his books may be considered controversial because it defies the feminist ideology that we've been indoctrinated into following.
Indoctrinated? Who? You didn't act feminist, though. None of the things that you described as failures in your relationship were like core to feminism. You just were a bad partner.
The word submissive is frequently used in Worthy Woman and has the potential to trigger feminists.
Submissive? What is submissive, man? Dude, my wife is literally submissive in a sexual way, and she's not submissive to me in terms of like how we run the household. We are equals. You know what I mean? Like, we're both adults. She needs her freedom. She needs to be able to have her space, have things how she likes it. Me too. Same thing. Like, what? If you want to do a sub-dom thing, go for it.
At the time I read the book, I was already partially disillusioned with feminism, and I was open to new ideas. I knew I wanted...
Why does she think feminism is the core of her problem here? You're an asshole, not a feminist.
...to save my marriage. My husband and I both read the book, and together we decided to give his methods a try. Without going into too much detail about the book, it basically educates people about traditional gender roles. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who is having difficulty in their relationship.
Okay. I should write a self-help book. How to be married. Talk to each other. For real, though.
It discusses how women in our society have a tendency towards masculine behaviors that serve to emasculate the men in their lives, which lessens the men's devotion towards those women.
Emasculate the men, which reduces devotion, which are metrics that we can measure. Yeah, I'm wondering if her husband's made up. Is he a made-up guy?
Submission is a tool that women can use to empower them.
Does he know he's your husband?
To effectively take leadership in a way that meets their needs. Submission is not synonymous with servitude, as I had previously thought. The book teaches women how to express themselves in feminine ways, such that the men they are with will be motivated to make them happy.
Feminine ways? What does that mean? Just be yourself. God damn it. Stop being a person you think other people want you to be and be the person that you are. I cannot stress this enough. No matter who is listening, no matter what your ideology, people get trapped in it. Be who you are. You don't have to just be an asshole. And if you are an asshole, there are aspects of you that can change. That's totally fine. And in fact, she was an asshole. Sounds like she was a big asshole the whole time. Can't wait for the How to Be Straight chapter, dude. It's going to be good. How to be straight. You just are. You're born with it, baby.
Obviously, this technique will not work in all cases, but it did work for my husband and me. Relationships are a delicate balance of masculine and feminine polar energies that coincide to enhance the quality of both people's lives.
I disagree. You don't have to be masculine and feminine to have a marriage. You can be either, neither, both.
It requires maturity and humility on the part of the woman to respectfully defer to the judgment of her man, as long as that man does not abuse her.
Just defer to his judgment in all cases? Just respectfully, unless he is an abusive guy. Fuck, man. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is just dumb stuff. So, if you have a disagreement about what type of fucking milk to buy, if you go, hey, I want to buy this milk, and he goes, no, I like this milk, do you just go, yes? Okay. No matter what? And so, for years, you've wanted the milk. You want the milks. I want this chalky milk. And he's like, no, we only get 2%. Prairie Farms. No other kinds of milk. And you're like, but I want to try the Fairlife chocolate milk. And let me tell you, buddy, the Fairlife chocolate milk absolutely slaps. It really does. It's the best chocolate milk out there. And so for years, you're just going to hold on to this.
I'll take human breast milk on my Cheerios.
And there's going to be 1,000 other situations that are like the milk. And let me tell you, as a man who has had relationships with women, many different women over the years, I'm a serial suave man, obviously. Let me tell you, the little things build up.
After a few months of embracing traditional gender roles, practicing submission, and showing my husband the respect he deserved, I came to the realization that we were finally happy.
Yeah, so you respecting him is good. You should respect each other. And it's probably working because you never let him do anything. And then he's like, oh, can I have decisions? And he did. And then that was it. But that's not sustainable forever. It's just a give and take. Holy fucking shit. Just have a dialogue.
A year and a half ago, we were on the verge of divorce. But now, since embracing my feminine nature, we've had 0 arguments.
What does embracing your feminine nature mean? 0 arguments? Do you not feel strongly about anything that you've disagreed with him on once? Sarah and I agree on almost everything, and we still, I wouldn't say arguments necessarily, but we at least have discussions where we're on opposite sides.
The conflict has completely disappeared and has been replaced by loving reciprocity. I came to find that being the
reciprocity is good. That is not anti-feminist.
Leader doesn't make me happy. I don't like ordering people around, nor do I like the responsibility of making all major decisions.
Dude, that's not what feminism is. You just don't understand it, huh?
The solution has always been elegantly simple and within my grasp, and now it feels like we are newlyweds. I take my role as a wife and mother very seriously, and I can't describe how rewarding that has been for me.
Okay.
However, it's important to acknowledge the economic reality of most people, which is that their households require dual incomes to pay the bills and keep a roof over their head. God has blessed me with a situation in which
God has blessed me.
can actually be a stay-at-home mother and devote my attention towards my family. But this isn't a possibility for many women. I don't know how to fix that. But I do know that feminism has led to dual-income households being the standard for most people because it caused women to flood the workforce in equal numbers as men. This has resulted in women being in a situation where they simply can't spend their time and their lives raising their own children.
Yeah, women don't need to be spending time raising children. However, every single parent wants to spend more time with their kids, I think. Every single one of them. But instead, they're all working like crazy all the time in this country because we're trash. It's a trash country.
Because they're socially required to pursue careers. My enlightenment...
Socially required? Dog, what? That's economically required. You said God has blessed me because they're socially required. No, you understand. It's an economics thing, not a fucking social blessing by God. This is a dumb person. This sucks.
From feminism was painful.
Does she think feminism is misandry? I guess.
because I
You
felt
can have a little healthy misandry.
and still feel like I was deceived. I came to the realization that feminism had infiltrated every corner of my mind and had influenced my values.
You didn't describe feminism. I watched this video and not once did you actually mention feminism? Like, describe feminism. Describe? At best, you were a jerk to your husband, and now you're sipping the right-wing Kool-Aid? I'd be happy to chat sometime about feminism and why it's good, actually. And you can have a good marriage at the same time. Boop.
I had believed in things that were actually lies.
I was going to make a joke if your husband allows it, but I thought I was already sassy enough in the thing.
This caused me to realize that I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. I
have bad news. It's still true, but in a way you're not smart enough to realize, you know?
consider myself to be a person who thinks deeply about society and all the implications of our current culture, and I feel obligated to reveal the truth about feminist ideology because I think it's the root cause of many serious issues that we are all currently dealing with.
Okay.
I also believe that if I had known years ago what I know now, I would have made better decisions. The knowledge I've learned has come from the suffering I've accumulated from repeated failure, and I want to pass on this information that I now have so that it might help someone else who's engrossed in this false belief system to
I think she would agree she was a jerk to her husband.
avoid making the same mistakes I did. Feminism has always promoted itself as being a movement that exists for the benefit and advancement of women. Some people consider it to be a movement towards equality of the sexes. Some people consider it to be a movement that wants to place women in a privileged position in relation to men.
I don't think that is the case. I've never heard anyone describe feminism as a way to put women in privilege over men.
Whatever the case may be, the consequences of this social experiment have revealed that it does not benefit women. In fact, it actively works against the interests of women in several ways.
I think you being an asshole worked against the better interest of you having a marriage, but it sounds like your husband is right-wing anyway? Huh? It sounds like you got a rich right-wing husband, or at least a well-off one, and you almost lost him because you're an asshole. And then, not to say, I mean, I don't know about his side of the story, but I mean, from your side of the story, it sounds like you were a jerk either way. And like, you almost fumbled literally the bag and you got it back, and now you're like, well, better hold on to that shit because I don't want to work. And I don't blame you if that's how you want to fucking roll, man. But I think you should be honest with yourself.
Over the course of a series of videos, I will explain how this is true. For now, thank you for watching, and please check out my next video on the topic of feminism.
Okay. Maybe we will. Yeah, I guess we'll see. She has other videos. How stoicism can help INFPs. Are INFPs weak? What is toxic femininity? Why matriarchies fail? Like, it sounds like you almost went through a divorce and now you're trying to just make videos to make up for it. Sounds like you're like, wait, actually, I hate women because this is your new, like, thing. And before feminism was totally your thing. You know? The negative consequences of the sexual revolution. The immature versus mature feminine. I don't know, dude. I don't know about that. I don't think she has stuff figured out. Hot take. I'd be happy to talk to her about feminism, though. That'd be interesting if her husband allows it.